Okay, here's our video on why we crave sugar. Now, there's some misconceptions here. When we think of sugar, we think of that sugar that you have in candy and all that junk food. But we also have a sugar we need. So let me just write that down. Get our pen going. Why don't we let's use that color. Why not? So the sugar in your lollipops and your soda and your cake and your delicious chocolate chip cookies, that sugar is called sucrose. So let's write that down. Sucrose. And that's the sugar I'll talk about in this video also. But there is good sugar, right? Because there's also glucose. And so let's talk about glucose first because glucose is a sugar, right? And it's important because our body needs glucose for energy. So why we crave sugar? Well, put a question mark there too. We should have a question mark, right? We crave sugar because we want glucose. We need that. It's our number one, it's our main fuel source. Let's write that down. The main fuel source, the main source of energy. Let's put that down. Main source of energy for the body is glucose. So why we crave sugar? It's glucose. We want the glucose. But what about sucrose? We'll talk about sucrose and fructose also. So let's get a clean page. All right, and let's use red. So again, when we're talking about glucose, our main source of fuel for the body, and fructose, right? So those are monosaccharides. Monosaccharides. Mono means one. So monosaccharides. Basically, it's sugar. Monosaccharides. Now, sucrose. Let's get this straight now. Sucrose is basically table salt. Table sugar, that is, not table salt. And sucrose is not monosaccharide, it's a disaccharide. So di means in science two, saccharide. And basically, you could find sucrose in nature also because sucrose is a combination of glucose and fructose. Right, so we have our monosaccharides and our disaccharides. So to sum this up now, glucose is the main source of sugar for the body. It wants glucose. So if you eat fructose, which is found in fruits, it's easy to remember that. They both have an F. Your body will convert it to glucose. Now, if you're having sucrose, your body will convert it to glucose also. So no matter what you eat, your body is going to convert it to glucose. So sucrose, which is table sugar and found in cookies, it's found in cakes and your soda, right? Everything else, right? All of those candy. Let's write candy down, right? That is basically sucrose. Now, you may say, like, what about honey? Honey is sugar. Yeah, honey is actually fructose. So all that from fruits and honey is fructose. And then what about, this corn syrup? Corn syrup can make a sugar also. And change the pen first. And so what corn syrup is just it's cheaper than sugar. That's why you see it. It's a high fructose corn syrup. You see that in a lot of breads and a lot of materials, a lot of food packages. You'll see high fructose corn syrup in sodas and so forth. It's just cheaper than sugar, than sucrose, regular table sugar. Whether it's more harmful to you than the other is still debated, right? But so it's not just corn, it's not just fructose that's in the corn syrup, it's also some glucose and isoglucose and stuff like that. All right. And if I was going to write the chemical formula for sucrose, I'll write it on top of it right here. So they have carbon, has 12 carbon molecules, it has 22 hydrogen molecules and 11 oxygen molecules. Whereas glucose, which the body wants, it prefers glucose, has 6 carbon, has 12 hydrogen and 6 oxygen. So that's glucose. And again, just remember, this is very important. The body wants glucose. If it takes in fruit with the fructose, it will convert it to glucose in the liver. And same with sucrose and any other of monosaccharides or disaccharides. Let's clear this page, move on. So the question again now, let's go back to red is, but why do we want it anyway? Why do we want sugar? Why do we crave it? It's hard to resist a chocolate chip cookie, right? Why do we crave it? Well, sugar, well, let's just talk about table sugar right now. We know why we want sucrose, right? Because your body needs it to survive. But table sugar, which again we said was sucrose, why do we crave that once we get it? Well, the thing about sucrose and table sugar, and it releases these chemicals in your body. It releases dopamine. And dopamine, let me, and it also releases serotonin. And the basic thing about these is when they release this, that's an O, not an A, serotonin, is that this is like a almost like a drug. It's almost like a drug because serotonin and dopamine, they help your mood. They help you feel better. They help you feel better, right? You have a chocolate chip cookie, you feel better, right? They help you feel better. Your body wants that good feeling. Your body, your brain wants that again. It wants, let's say your body, it wants that happy feeling. And a lot of scientists say, look, sugar is like a drug. I want that happy feeling. So, you're getting this release of dopamine and serotonin, and it makes you feel happy, makes you feel good. And when it goes down, your body wants it again. So that's the craving right there. And if you have too much of it, if you're so addicted to sugar, it's very hard to get off of that addiction, just like drugs, right? So you got to be careful with too much sugar. And too much sugar, so here are the downfalls of it. Let's change the color. We use green, right? Obesity is one. Too much sugar is obesity. And diabetes, inflammation in the joints. Inflammation. Inflammation. Put that in there. And heart disease. Put down heart disease. Believe it or not, too much sugar can cause skin aging. And there's many more effects of too much sugar. Because what happens in that, it accelerates the oxidation in our cells, so they can damage your cells. So when you're having sugar, now again, your body wants sugar, that wants the glucose. When you absorb food and your body will release glucose into the system, then your pancreas will release insulin. And that insulin is going to take that, it's almost like a gatekeeper. It's going to direct the glucose into the cells because your body needs that glucose. Now, if you have too much in your blood, it's going to send it to the liver. And that could be a good and bad because you want to store some glucose. It'll be stored as glycogen in the liver. And we've done that in our primordial past so we can survive. If you went days without eating, at least you have glycogen as a storage to help you. But if you have even too much of that, it'll be stored as fat. So let me show you a diagram. So basically what's happening here, and get the pen, let's use that color. So again, when your body has used up the glucose it needs, all the cells have its glucose, it's going to send it to the liver. It'll store it in the liver as glycogen. Right here, glycogen. And then when it wants the glucose again, it'll turn it back into glucose. That's it. But if you have too much, you have more than you need, the extra will be turned into fat. So glucose will be turned into fat, and that is not so good. Now, we need some fat in our body. We need fat to absorb nutrients, but too much fat is no good, right? Because over time, obesity, inflammation, heart disease, all from that extra fat. And the key thing about too much fat, I'll write it over here, too much fat. Too much fat is no good. So too much fat will impair, this is one of many things, it will impair the body's response to insulin. And then let me draw a quick thing. Let's draw a little Save this for a minute just so you can write it down if you need to. Again, too much fat impairs the body's response to insulin. And of course, you know it causes obesity and inflammation and heart disease from that. But let me give you a blank page here. And let's write insulin. If we get our pen, we can write insulin. There it is. So if we write insulin, so insulin is released in the pancreas. And insulin, let's say this is your cell. And let's say that this is your blood. And you have, and we'll put in green, this is all the glucose. All that glucose is in your body. Right? Your body converted everything it needs to glucose. It's in your body and it wants to go to the cell. And what would happen is insulin is like a key. So the insulin will attach itself to the cell. There's an arrow with the insulin. And I'm oversimplifying things here. And then what it does is it has the cell open its doors for the glucose to enter, and only the amount it wants, to all the cells in our body. Right? We have over 30 trillion cells in our body. All those cells want that energy. So then again, the extra energy, where does it go? Where does that extra glucose go? The extra glucose goes to the liver, right, where it's converted to glycogen. And if there's still too much, it's converted to fat. Now, we know if we go deep into our past, if we go to Homo erectus, which was one of the first of the Homo species to use fire, and even if you go before that, we know, and even the great apes right now, they will gorge themselves with food if they have the possibility to find it. So we know why we want sugar. We need sugar because we need glucose. But why do we want sucrose? Sucrose is addictive because sucrose will release dopamine and serotonin that make us feel good. So that's why we crave sugar.